Good evening, everybody. I hope that you guys have had an amazing day. I want to talk about what's been dominating the news lately. Really, what I want to deal with today is to help you to discern or to hear God's voice. How do you know when something is coming from God? I'm going to give you eight pointers that I've written down, but we're going to talk about the situation first, and I want to show you where God was actually moving in that particular situation. The Bible tells us that warning comes before destruction, a haughty look before fall. And so, one of the things I want you to understand is that whether you're saved or unsaved, God does love you, right? He does love you, and He will go out of His way to save your life. I am a living witness. I am a living witness of that. So, do me a favor, be sure to like and share as you come into the space. Not going to be on here very, very long on tonight. I missed yesterday. Normally, I go live on Wednesdays. I didn't go live yesterday. That's neither here nor there. But I want to get into this. I want to get into it, but I want to make sure that we get enough people in the room first. And like I said, we're going to be dealing with the story. I'm going to be talking about some of the highlights and some of the facts. I had an article pulled up that I wanted to read to you all. Let me see if I can pull it back up. And do me a favor, because I keep calling this man Lindell. His name is Lindell. Just let me know if I say Lindell, because I was writing my notes down and I kept putting down Lindell and it's Zendale. And so I'm going to use his. I don't know if he realizes it, but he realizes it. But he has a testimony. He has a testimony. The same is true for another woman that was in a vehicle, and we'll talk about that. And I'm going to help you to understand again how to know when you're hearing God's voice. How do you know when God is speaking to you? How do you know when God is giving you a warning? How do you know when God is giving you instructions? Let me say this. Um, God can give you a warning. God can also give you a blessing. And what I mean by a blessing, God can tell you, hey, I'm going to bless you with this. I want you to go buy this. I want you to go do that. For the last year and a half, maybe 2 years, no, yeah, last almost 2 years, I've been living in just a suddenly season. Like God would just bless me, bless me, bless me, bless me, and it's been beautiful. Um, it's been beautiful. I won't complain. I'm grateful for it. Don't get me wrong. But a lot of times when God said things to me, even though I knew it was Him, a lot of times if you're accustomed to um struggling, if you're accustomed to not having good things, nice things, and what have you, or you just think everything is futuristic in your mind, then a lot of times it's hard for you to just obey God, because in that you begin to question whether it is God. Because here it is, God is saying, for example, I'm about to bless you with a house, I'm about to bless you with a car, I'm about to bless you with this, I'm about to bless you with that. But that's neither here nor there. Do me a favor, guys. Be sure to like and share. Be sure to share Facebook. Let me know that y'all are in the room by liking and sharing. By liking and sharing. Be sure to hit the hearts button, Facebook, to let me know y'all are in here. I wish I could take a picture to let you see what I see on my end, and that way you'll know why I'm always putting pressure on Facebook. Because if you don't engage, it only shows me like one person that is in the space. Okay, let's go ahead and jump into this. Like I said, I'm not going to be on here long. I do apologize. I didn't come out yesterday, but I'm not going to be on here long. I just wanted to talk about this. I want to help you to understand when you're hearing God's voice. I want to help you to understand when you're hearing God's voice. How do you respond to the voice of God? How should you respond to the voice of God? So let's go ahead and jump into this. I'm trying to make sure I don't jump around. You guys heard the story about these people that went down to. I was almost about to say this family, but they're not a family. Latavia was related to Shaeed, I think. But for the most part, I think the others were friends and what have you. There's a lot going on. And I'm going to say this. I do believe that this story is going to continue to unfold. I am of the school of thought that there's a lot more that we don't necessarily know. Um, and before we get into this message, I want to go ahead and say this. Let's not fight it out in the comments. There are a lot of theories. Anytime you have people that have a shaky past, anytime you have people that have a shady past, anytime you have people that have a pretty seedy past, that do something, they get caught up in some type of trouble, there's usually a lot of theories surrounding them. So of course we know there are theories that it was a drug deal gone bad. We don't know that, right? There's no evidence to support that other than the fact that they have criminal history, which the news is reporting on. But we don't know that as of right now. What's being said is that Latavia McGee went down to Mexico to get a medical procedure, which we've come to know now was a tummy tuck. She went down to Mexico to get a tummy tuck, and this was supposed to be her second medical procedure. What we also know about Latavia is that she has 6 kids. She just got married in 2021, the whole nine. Um, I think Shaeed was her cousin. Lindell was a close friend. I don't know the relationship between her and the other two parties. Yes, I did say the other two parties because there were 5 people and not 4. But one person didn't get a chance to cross the border. And for me, let me tell you, when I look at situations, what I do is I like to look for God in a situation. I want you to hear me when I say this. Everything is a lesson. Everything is a lesson. There is so much for you to learn in other people's blessings and in other people's mess. There is so much for you to learn in that. And while that situation is unfortunate, it can and will save lives. I don't know if you know that, but it can and will save lives because there are people that were likely planning to go through Metamorphosis, Mexico. And if I said the name wrong, please forgive me, but there were people that were planning to go through that. I'm pretty sure they are thinking twice. I was watching TikTok. This lady said, she lives in Mexico, and she's a black woman. She said her boyfriend is Mexican, and she showed her text messages between her and her boyfriend or what have you. And there's a lot being said, but one thing her boyfriend said, that's the reason why when we came from North Carolina, we didn't go through Metamorphosis. He said because she said they drove 6 hours out of the way to avoid that place. That place has a high travel advisory, or what have you. So I'm going to read an article to you guys, and I'm going to make sure I give them their credit. I'm going to read an article to you guys, and then we're going to jump into this. And again, today's message, I'm going to be helping you to discern or to differentiate God's voice. And this article is coming from apnews.com. I'll try to make sure I share the link once I'm done, but apnews.com, and it is entitled What We Know About the 4 Americans Kidnapped in Mexico. What we know about the 4 Americans kidnapped in Mexico. Again, that's AP, stands for Peter. AP, what doesn't stand for Peter, but apnews.com, and it's by Alfredo Pena and Matthew Barakat. All right, let's get into it. 4 Americans who traveled to Mexico last week to seek health care got caught in a deadly shootout and were kidnapped by heavily armed men who threw them in the back of a pickup truck, officials from both countries said Monday. The 4 were traveling Friday in a white minivan with, let me start that part again. Okay, the 4 were traveling Friday in a white minivan with North Carolina license plates. They came under fire shortly after entering the city of Matamoros from Brownsville at the southernmost tip of Texas near the Gulf Coast, the FBI said in a statement Sunday. All 4 Americans were placed in a vehicle and taken from the scene by armed men. The FBI said the Bureau is now offering a $50,000 reward for the victim's return and the arrest of the kidnappers. One of the things I want to stop here and say, when it started happening, I saw the stuff on TikTok and they were talking about $50,000 to the cartel is nothing. So, whenever they put up a ransom tip, that they were like, they make more than $50,000 in a day. I don't know anything about the cartel. I don't know anything about Mexico. I've been to Mexico one time on a cruise that was to Cozumel, when I ended up taking my mom on a cruise. Probably one of the best trips we ever took. But that's neither here nor there. Let's get back into this. Zalandria Brown of Florence, South Carolina, said that she has been in contact with the FBI and local officials after hearing that her younger brother, Lindell Brown, is one of the 4 victims. Now, I want to stop because this is pretty much an older article. This is when it first happened. This wasn't the article I intended to read. Nevertheless, I can just go ahead and jump into the facts. 2 of the Americans were found dead. 2 of them were found dead, and that was Shaeed. Let me make sure I got his name right. Shaeed Woodard, and also Lindell Brown. Shaeed Woodard and Lindell Brown were found dead. Another fact that I want to go on record mentioning: there were 5 people initially traveling. I found that out on today. There were 5 people initially traveling before people crossed the border. There was a lady by the name of Cheryl Orange. She was denied entry because she didn't bring the proper identification. You don't have to have a passport, but you have to have identification. She didn't bring the proper identification, so they ended up putting her in a hotel room. And according to her, from what I saw, according to her, the plan was they were going to go drop Latavia off for the surgery. And while she was over there to get the surgery, the guys were supposed to swing back through and get her. They said it was going to be like 15 minutes or what have you. But after a few hours, when they didn't come back, she started contacting authorities because she knew that something was wrong. Now, there's literally nothing that we can do for them right now. Because two of them are deceased, and the ones that are living, I'm pretty sure that I really don't have to preach to them. I wouldn't have to tell them, hey, heed the warnings or what have you. One of the things I want to deal with on today is the warnings of God. I want to deal with the warnings of God, but I'm not going to necessarily deal with that. I'm going to help you to understand God's voice so that you know when God is warning you. I can tell you when I was in the world, when I was unsaved, God warned me. I had warnings from God. And you don't necessarily know it's God, but at that time you think um, you just have some type of feeling. I forget the word for it, but you feel like you just got some type of feeling, like some type of supernatural, like you accredit it to yourself or what have you. You accredit it to yourself. But they were going over there, and one of the people in there got a warning. I'm pretty sure the other ones did. They had a check in their spirit. They're not here to tell, but one person verbally told people, "Hey, right, gut feeling, premonition. Great, thank you guys, thank you. That's definitely what I'm looking for." But he made it known that he wasn't comfortable with going, and I want to talk about that. One of the facts that I wrote down was that this was Latavia's second cosmetic surgery procedure in Mexico, according to her mother. And forgive me if I'm stumbling over my words, guys. But this was Latavia's second cosmetic procedure in Mexico. That's what her mother said. Now, we can get into the theories or what have you, because we saw the photos, and they posted the photo of her after the rescue, and she doesn't look like she's had a medical procedure, because allegedly the first medical procedure was a butt lift, a BBL. But she's facing frontward. You don't see any curves on her. So it's easy to assume, a lot of people, like, she doesn't look like she's had a butt lift. And then also, given the fact that they've had history allegedly with drugs or what have you. And so, people are having all these speculations and stuff like that. But Lindell, this is the one I want to deal with. Lindell was dealing with this anxiety about going. Zendale. I told you I was going to end up calling him Lindell. But Zendale was dealing with an anxiety about going. And he had vocalized it even to his sister. And his sister, I don't know what dream she had, but she said, I saw a 37-second clip where she said that she'd had a dream or what have you. She had told him, about a dream. Not only that, he felt really uncomfortable. Some message or a video I saw on TikTok, I don't know how accurate this is, but said that, hey, Zatavia, what's her name? Latavia had really urged him to go, despite the fact that he had, made it clear that, hey, I don't think we should do this. I don't think that we should do this. Nevertheless, she overrode his will and his warnings with her own. And in case that's one of the things I also want to deal with now. Like I said, this isn't going to be long, so forgive me, guys. I know that a lot of times I may come on here and do like 2-hour messages. I don't think this is going to be that long today, but I do believe it's going to bless you. I want to give you some of the lessons that I've learned. Number one, heed the warnings. Matamoros is a high-risk travel destination, so that's one of the warnings. It's on the U.S. Travel Advisory, U.S. State Department's travel advisory. It is a level 4 warning, meaning do not enter. That is it. See, the thing about it is, the United States didn't say you are forbidden. You have will, but they put that as a high risk. They said this is a high risk place. Do not go there. However, when you have will, you have the ability to make a decision. And they decided, hey, we're going to go against all of that. Even though there's a high travel, advisory, high risk travel advisory, even though, his sisters had a dream, even though Zendale is dealing with a check in his spirit, we're still going to go. We're still going to go. Warning comes before destruction, and a haughty look before a fall. Now, do I want to teach this message? I don't want to come off as hard, but I'm speaking to the living because I can't speak to the dead. I'm speaking to the living because a lot of times the mistakes that we make as the living is we override that check in our spirits. We override what it is that God is saying to us. We override that because of the voices around us, because we got all these people around us. And these people, they come from they're African Americans. You can tell that they come from a rough life, right? And when I say they come from an area like me, I'm talking about they come from street life, right? They come from street life. But the thing about it is, whenever you're coming from street life, a lot of times you can be a little bit bolder than you should be because you've lived through a lot. And what that can do is give you a false sense of security. And it can make you feel like you are untouchable. It can make you feel like you can go to Afghanistan, you can go to Ukraine, you can go into places like that, and ain't nobody gonna touch on you. I've been out the country plenty of times, and they have this thing where we may talk about American pride, but they really, really hammer down on us about our pride. America is known for being an incredibly prideful country. We get a false sense of security over here. We have this false sense of security, whereas we feel like there's nothing can happen to me. I'm untouchable. And I can honestly say when I went to Germany, I actually did behave like that. I'm not going to even sit here in front like I didn't. When I went to Germany, I actually did behave like that. If I got upset, for me, I remember if I just got upset, if I got into it, I was married at the time. If I got upset, I'm an atmosphere person. And so I can't sit in a toxic atmosphere. And so if I got upset, I would get up, I would literally go for a walk. And when I say go for a walk, I'm talking about a neighborhood I wasn't familiar with, and I would walk far. But that's something I did as a kid. I would always pull myself out of those type of environments or what have you. But that's American pride. I can honestly call it what it is. That was foolishness. It was foolishness. While I was trying to remove myself from an environment because I didn't like the way it felt, I felt squares in, I felt overwhelmed. The thing about it was getting up in a country I didn't know, and I knew I did not speak the language, and just walking aimlessly because I literally got lost on a couple of occasions. I literally got lost on a couple of occasions. But for me, being lost is far better than being in an environment like that. But I'm saying that to say that's one of the things that we have to deal with as Americans. We do have warnings. We have the blessing of having the United States the United States travel advisory, and you can go to the website and they have a list: level 1, level 2, level 3, level 4. Level 4 is the highest. That means do not travel here. But they don't override your will. They will not override your will. There are some countries, and I'm trying to think what's the name of that country again. What is the name of that country? I know the name of that country. It's like I can see it in my head. But they just opened up travel for Americans. They just opened up, like, they would not allow Americans in. They like pretty much cut the whole wide world off. And I'm not talking about North Korea. I'm not talking about North Korea, but I'm talking about there are countries that, we can be pretty much shut out of, but there are other countries where you can go to, but they warn you strongly. And because of our American pride, we will oftentimes ignore it. Cuba. Thank you. It is Cuba. It is Cuba. It's Cuba. But oftentimes we will ignore, right, the warnings. We'll ignore all of that because in our minds, we're untouchable. In our minds, we survived the shootout. We survived this. We survived that. Ain't nobody going to touch us or what have you. And you get to another country and you come to find out that, what you thought was gangster over here is nothing over there. So heed the warnings. Matamoros is a high-risk travel destination according to the United States Travel Department or Travel Advisory. It is a level 4, which is the highest. Number 2, listen to the voice within. Cuba, definitely. Listen to the voice within. That voice within is oftentimes God. And I'm going to tell you how you know it's God's voice in a minute, but listen to the voice within. Zendale Brown had that voice echoing within him. And can I say something that, love you too, love you too. Can I say something that is not kosher? Or maybe I should heed my mom's advice. When I say my mom's advice, something my mom used to say to me when I was younger was that I lack tact, some things I shouldn't say or what have you. But I do want to say this because I am Christian. I do believe in heaven and hell. I do believe in those type of things. The enemy wants to snatch you out of here before you get saved. Now, I don't know what their relationship was like with God. I know that they were a little bit rough around the edges, but it doesn't mean that they weren't saved. I don't know what their relationship is with God, but the enemy will try to get you out of here before you are surrendered to God, before you have given your life over to God. So one of the things that you want to be careful with as you walk this event called Life Out, one of the things that you want to be careful with is that you are not ignoring that check mark in your spirit, regardless of whether you're saved or unsaved. You want to be careful that you're not ignoring that check mark in your spirit. Because, like I said, when I was unsaved, I got that check mark. I got warned, but I had been warned by God before. God was dealing with me because you know what? God loved me. He will go after, he will leave the 99 and go after the one. I am the one he went after. You are the one he went after. So listen to the voice within. Brother Lindell had that voice checking from within him, that voice telling him, don't go. And I think that it has a lot to do with, I think he had praying family members, right? But he got the warning. Number three, last one for this particular list. Never allow, and I'm going to stay here for a minute and then we're going to move from here and I'm going to help you to understand God's voice. Number three, never allow someone to override your will with their own. Passivity kills. Never allow someone to override your will with their own. The reason I say that is, and like I said, I don't know if this is true, but I saw a girl report on TikTok allegedly that, Lindell, now we do know he had voiced his concerns. I think he even sent a text message about his concerns, but it was reported that Latavia had encouraged him, like put pressure on him to continue coming. And the reason that stands out to me, you guys know I have told you guys my story about as it relates to my mom. My mom was a beautiful spirit, right? She was one of those people that she just didn't know how to tell you no. My mom cared about what people thought about her. She cared a lot about what people thought about her. She wanted so much to please people. And I remember being a young girl, and I remember, just being frustrated, having to take on the weight of that, just mom, just tell them no, just tell them no. Because my mom would tell her kids, right? She would express to her kids in the house, I really don't feel like going. I really don't want to do that. I don't know why that woman want to do that. She just don't care. I'm tired, this, that. She would tell us. But when people came around, she would just pretty much be like, giving in to their demands, which would leave me, I was her, the one that would jump up and be like, no, she doesn't want to go, mom. And mom like, now Tiffany, go sit down. No, it's fine. It's fine. Or what have you. But I used to get frustrated with her as a young girl. I would get frustrated with her because she was allowing people to override her. And I remember being a young lady. I don't know how old I was. I don't know if I was 10, 11, 12, maybe even 16. But one of the things I remember saying to my mom, I don't know how early it was when I started saying this to her, I'm like, you keep doing all this stuff for these people and they don't even like you. Like, you doing all of this stuff, me and my brother. I remember we would say things to her. I remember my mom would go and tell one of our relatives like every mistake that her kids make. And I said, Mom, you notice you tell everybody, me and my brother said that to my mom. You tell everybody what's going on with your kids. You ever notice they don't tell you nothing going on with their kids? Like, you got to hear it through the grapevine. You got to hear it on the street. Or you got to bump into one of their kids pregnant or something like that. Like, you literally don't know what's going on. Why do you feel the need to offer up your kids? Why do you feel the need to kind of expose yourself to make people feel satisfied? I say this, when I say passivity kills, I'm speaking that from a personal place. My mother, and I've said this before, I don't believe cancer killed my mother. Passivity killed my mother. Cancer didn't kill my mother. Passivity killed my mother. My mother died from lung cancer. My mom had a boyfriend living with her for 8 years and she didn't smoke. And this dude sitting in the house smoking cigarettes. And we would sit there and tell her, like, why don't you tell him to go outside? Same was true for my dad, but she put pressure on my dad from time to time. But my dad still smoked in the house. She had this dude in her house, this man in her house that had no respect for her or her kids, sitting there with that cigarette in his mouth. When I moved in, I remember putting him outside. When I moved in, I put him outside. I remember one particular time I was over there, I was doing my mom's hair. And I'm over there, I'm doing her hair. My mom had just been diagnosed with cancer, I think, for like the first time, right? I'm doing my mom's hair, and we had a relative to come over. We'll call her Margaret. Margaret comes over to the house and she comes in and she's talking and she was like, oh, she sees me doing my mom's hair. And she makes a joke about me doing her hair, what have you. I was like, nah. And then she takes a cigarette and puts it in her mouth. And I looked at her and I said, don't light that cigarette in this house. She was like, I can't light this cigarette. I said, don't light that cigarette in his house. You know, my mom, what she's doing, dealing with, and what have you. And she looked at my mom. She said, Alice, you gonna let her talk to me like that? My mom was sitting there looking, and I said, don't light that cigarette in this house. So she got a cigarette lighter. She was cussing, and she got a cigarette lighter and getting ready to light it. And I got some hairspray, and I held it up. I said, light it and watch me light you up. And she stared at me for a minute. And then she cussed her way out. She said, this why I don't come over. She always been disrespectful. She always been this. She always been that. The thing about it was, this was the frustrating part. For me, growing up with a really, really passive mother was frustrating because people assumed that her kids were going to be doormats as well. People assumed her kids were going to be doormat. And I have a lot, I'm a kind person. I have a lot of my mother's traits. But at the same time, I think my personality is I always say my personality can be a little bit deceptive because I can come off as really passive and what have you, which I'm just kind. And people can mistake that for passivity and decide, hey, well, I can walk over her and then they get the surprise. But that's not the point. My mother, that day, I told Margaret to go outside. Margaret goes outside. One of my uncles was outside with a cigarette in his mouth and my mom's boyfriend. And Margaret goes out there cursing. And I know this because my uncle comes in laughing about the story. Margaret goes out there cursing and said my mom's boyfriend looked at her and he said, she put you out too? She put you out too? Now, putting up a boundary to a person who is used to overriding the will of people, putting up a boundary, and a lot of times with people can make them reveal how they really feel about you. Putting up a boundary, I don't know who needs to hear that. Because, like I told my mom, you have people smiling at you because you keep saying yes. You will see people's true hearts when you say no. You will see people's true hearts when you say no. So, number 3 is never allow someone to override your will with their own. He had a check in his spirit, and 9 times out of 10, the reason that he overrode that check in his spirit was because he was worried about what they would say about him. He was worried that they would be mad at him. He was worried that they would call him a punk. They would call him scared or what have you. But you know what? She lived to tell the story. He didn't. She lived to tell the story. She lived. She lived to tell the story. She probably, I don't think she got the tummy tuck, but she lived to tell the story. 9 times out of 10, she gonna get up and go to another doctor to get her tummy tuck. She gonna go on with her life. Will she have trauma? Yeah, she may have a little bit of trauma, but she's gonna go on with her life. But he's not. He's no longer on this side of eternity. He no longer has the ability to repent or anything. He has no ability to raise his children if he had to kiss his mother. He doesn't have that ability. Him and the other guy, they were robbed of their ability to live because they were listening to somebody else, which because she wanted a tummy tuck. Because she wanted a tummy tuck. So I'm saying that to say, if somebody says to you, hey, come, let's go to Japan. And you genuinely, Sister Elisa, you're beautiful. Thank you, sis. God bless you. God bless you. If you genuinely you don't want to go to Japan, say no. Say no. If they say, I remember having a friend of mine, she would do this to me all the time. You don't know. And I said, girl, like I said, no. Like I said, no. And I learned relatively young that one of the biggest issues on the face of this planet, and I want y'all to tell me if I'm wrong, is control. Let me know if I'm wrong. Because that's Satan's issue. Satan wants to control God's people. Satan wants to control the human race in totality. The biggest issue, every person you ever had in your life that did you wrong, every person that you ever had in your life that was demonized, it was an issue with control. Think about it. It was all centered around control. That is the biggest issue on the face of this planet. Control doesn't always look like dominant control. It can be covert. It can be covert. You scared? Look at it. No, don't. You just scared. I remember this one girl I went to school with didn't like me and I couldn't understand for the life of me why she didn't like me. I think that's been the case with me most of my life. Whenever I came across people that didn't like me, I'm like, what? I'm nice. What the heck? What have you? She never really had a conversation with me. She just made it up in her mind the day she saw me. I don't like this girl. But I remember she would oftentimes try to say something to me. I would just ignore her or what have you. But I remember coming in like wearing new, like if I wore new shoes or new clothes, she would try to shame me. That's control. She would try to shame me. And this is like junior high, what have you, but she would try to shame me. What you got on, Tiffany? That's control. That is a form of control. Control is I'll shame you, I'll punish you, I'll abandon you, I'll mistreat you, I'll reject you, I'll deny you if you don't do what I want. It's a form of control. I don't care how you look at it. It is a form of control. God gave you the mechanism of will. And what you do with will is that you make decisions with it, right? You utilize your will. So if I sit back and I say, Sister Ayana, hey, listen, come go to the store with me. You can say no. You can say, no, I really don't feel like it. If I say, anyhow, that's all right. Sister Tawana, you kind of go with me. And then I turn around and I come back and I see Sister Aeon, and I'm like this. And you say, hey, girl, what y'all gonna do? That's control. That's a form of control. That is not healthy communication. That is toxic communication. It is ungodly, and it is something that you shouldn't do. Now, I don't know if that's the case with her, but when I was listening to their story, that's where it took me. But never allow someone to override your will with their own will. Let your yes be yes, let your no be no. If you don't feel like doing something, don't do it. If you don't feel comfortable doing something, don't do it. Always pray about everything. But if you sit back and, you say, hey, you're driving a car and somebody in the passenger side say, turn left. This is a shortcut. And you say, no, I'm going to go the normal way. And they say, no, turn left. I'm telling you, I'm going to go the normal way because I really don't feel right about turning these potholes and stuff down. There's potholes. If that's your car, if that puts you at risk, you don't have to do it. Thank you, Mama Meadows. Love you. Love you. You don't have to do it because at the end of the day, you're assuming the risk as well. Anytime you're going to assume a risk, you do have a voice. And so I'm saying that to say, because in this particular case, it's very sad to me that this guy lost his life. But it's interesting to see that he had that check in his spirit, and he was warned 3 times. He was warned 3 times. The rest of them, they were probably warned just as much. He was warned 3 times. He was warned through the dream his sister had. She hasn't posted the dream yet. I'm looking forward to hearing what she says. But the dream his sister had, he was warned by the check he had in his spirit. He was incredibly uncomfortable about it. And I'm talking about Lindell Brown. He was warned by that. And then there was a travel advisory. He was warned at minimum 3 times. And that's what happens. God will give you a warning. And I want to help you to understand his voice so you can sit back and you can't say, well, Tiffany, sometimes I don't know if it's God's voice, if it's the enemy, or is it my voice? I want to help you to understand whether it's God's voice. I'm going to give you 8 pointers. And prayerfully, this is going to help you. Prayerfully, this is going to help you because the thing is, God wants us to know his voice, right? He wants us to have an intimate relationship with him. And I think that's important for me to note that knowing God's voice is not hearing like tones or pitches. That's not how God's voice, moves. You don't want to be looking for, I knew that was the devil because it sounded like, listen. No, no. So that's not what you want to look for. You're not necessarily looking for a tone. You're not necessarily looking for a feeling. What you're looking for is confirmation. What you're looking for, and I'm going to go ahead and jump in this so I don't jump ahead of myself. So number one, and I'm going to tell you, if you want to learn God's voice, I highly advise you to take notes. If you want to know God's voice, I highly advise you to take notes. Oh, Mama Meadows, I appreciate you. I appreciate you. Sister, you don't have to. No, I appreciate you. But yeah, I appreciate you. I appreciate you. But number one, God's voice, and I don't want to get a whooping. They can post, the ladies, y'all can post the Cash App. But I'm probably gonna send it back to you, Mama Meadows. I'll tell you the truth. I'm just saying, I love you. I love you. Number one, God's voice is often heavy. It weighs on your heart. God's voice is often heavy. It weighs on your heart. Um, I can tell you, and I don't know if I put this in my notes. Okay, yeah. God's voice is often heavy. God's voice is often heavy. His voice is something that you can't get around. So whenever God has spoken to me, there are times where I've had where I'm like, is that God? I feel like that's God, but I don't know if that's God. And then there were times where I was like, I'm sure that's God. And then there were times where I'm like, I'm absolutely sure without a shadow of doubt that that's God. You're most welcome. I love you. But I, without a shadow of doubt, I know that that's God. When I can give examples, but the most recent one was when I got that car. And what that's not the most recent, but that's the most recent like big event where God's voice was weighed on me, and then it was confirmation behind confirmation or what have you. That is an example of God's voice. It won't lift. You know, you get up the next day, that weight is still on you, that pressure is still on you. God will put pressure on you a lot of times, and you can tell it's God because unlike Satan, God doesn't nag. It's just a weight. It becomes a burden. Anytime I remember when I started my publishing company in like 2012 or 2013, like 2012, 2013. And I didn't even have it in my head to start a publishing company. Literally, I didn't have it in my mind. It wasn't in my head to start a publishing company. And what ended up happening was literally it just hit me out of nowhere. And it was just this weight that hit me, right? It was just this weight that came over me. And I looked and I was like, I'm going to start a publishing company. It just came out of my mouth. It was a weight. God gave me my company, I think, vision. My company I'm just launching. He literally gave that to me 5 years ago. When I went and looked at the domain, he gave that to me 5 years ago. I don't remember what I was doing, but I hear from him mostly in the middle of the night. I was up working and I don't know, it just came out of nowhere. Well, it came from God, but vision. He gave me the spelling and everything. And I was like, that's interesting. So I went to GoDaddy and I typed it in because God put the burden on me. He was like, buy that domain. I went in, I typed it in, I saw that it was available. So I purchased it. I was like, this is really cute. I like this. So I purchased it or what have you. I've told this story before. A year came. And I looked and, GoDaddy would send you that renewal notification. And I'm looking like, why am I renewing this? Like, I didn't use it. I don't even know what it's for. I don't know what type of business this is. I don't know what God wants me to do with this. So then immediately I started questioning, was that God? Because I haven't done anything. And literally, when I was making a decision or getting ready to make the decision to delete it, that weight came over me. And I heard God saying, do not delete that domain. Do not delete it. Hold on to that domain. So I went ahead, I paid it. The next year came around. Here come year two. I still don't know what this is for. I'm kind of getting, because we prophesy in part, God will give you pieces of a vision at a time. Sometimes he'll give you just a little bit of a grain of the vision. And so I'm sitting there like, why? This is the second year I'm paying for a domain and I really don't know what it's for. This is the second year. Why am I paying for this domain? And if I'm thinking correctly, I could be wrong, but I think I may have paid for it this time for like 2 years. Because again, here comes that burden. Here comes that burden. God saying, do not let this go. Don't let it go. So I paid for it. And then this year, when it came down to my office space, I didn't plan. I wasn't looking for an office space. I got a prophetic word that I was going to have an office space the whole nine, but I wasn't looking for an office space. Like I wasn't going on any directories. I wasn't searching online. I didn't think I was going to get an office space that soon. And what happened was a sister in Christ reached out to me and she was like, the office space next to me just came open or what have you. She said, because I went over there to help her when she got her space. I went over there to help her, put her front of, to kind of straighten everything up and what have you. But with her products, I helped her with her products when she first moved in. I went over there a few times. So long story short, I was like, yeah, I remember that space. She said, but yeah, it's not in good condition. But the guys cleaned up, and I remember this memory came over me of her landlord. And what I remembered about her landlord was that this man had taken such good care of her. Because I remember being in her space a couple of times, well, several times when she first got the building. And I was over there helping her, and she was bragging about him. I remember having a long conversation with him. I remember the fact that he's from South Africa, but he's a Caucasian guy. But he was over there, he was just talking. And what I remember about him was that everything she complained about, like she was like, I don't like this flooring. Can we do something about the roof? He said, of course. He never said, oh, I'm gonna have to charge you a little bit extra. He said, of course. So I was like, girl, you got a really good landlord. So when she told me this is like, that happened like 5 years ago. So when she told me about this landlord, I mean, she told me that space was open, even though she said it was not in top tier shape. I remembered that, you know what, he's a good landlord. Whatever is wrong with, because it's a nice building, nice area, whatever's wrong with that office, he'll fix it. So she told it to me in passing. I don't think she thought I was going to do anything with it or whatever. She told it to me in passing. The next thing you know, I started getting that burden. Like, I really want to see that space. But I'm going to be honest with you, I still didn't think I was going to get it. But I just had this burden, like, I want to go see it. I want to go see it. So I told her, I was like, I feel like I want to go see it, what have you. And she was like, yeah, you can, I'll send you his information or what have you. So she sent it to me. I reached out to him. He didn't respond. I had to reach out to him on a couple of occasions before he finally responded. We set up a date. I got out there to the office space. And when we got out the car, he said, when I got out the car, he was already sitting in his truck. He got out of his truck, came over and greeted me. He was like, yeah, I'm not going to show you that space because the people, they really did a number on it. He said, but we do have another space that just came open. It's a little bit higher in rent, but it's more spacious. I think you'll like it. It's already moving ready. And I was like, okay, let's go look at it. Let's go look at it. I walked with him, but right before I went into the space that I rented, um, he showed me, because I parked right in front of the space that I was intending to look at. He was like, yeah, he had the door unlocked. He opened the door and he made a comment about the condition or what have you. And I was like, can I look at it? And he was like, yeah. I walked in there. I was like, yeah, I would not have wanted this space. It needs a lot of work or what have you. Long story short, he took me down into the other space and I was like, that burden, there it was again. That's yours. That's yours. And let me tell you something about the voice of God. Whenever you're dealing with that burden, sometimes there's a fear that comes upon you, because for me, I'm like, Tiffany, that's an additional, that's like you paying 2 rents a month, right? You doubling your bills up a month. You doubling your bills up. Do you really want to do that? But I felt the voice, I felt the pressure of God. And I've noticed, or I've learned over the course of time, I have history with God. God has never led me astray. Are y'all still here? Are y'all still here? God has never led me astray, right? He's always taking care of me. So I went ahead and I was like, let me go ahead and get it. And I did. And it's coming together. I'm really excited about it. And that's that. Number two, now again, number one, God's voice is often heavy. It weighs on your heart. Like I said, you should take notes. God's voice is often heavy. It will weigh on your heart. Like you'll wake up the next day, it's a burden. It seems to be a burden. It won't lift. Number two, God's voice is often the loudest voice playing in your mind, while Satan's voice is oftentimes the most persistent. I'm going to say that again. God's voice is often the loudest. It's usually that first voice that you get, and then you always have that contrary voice that comes and say, you ain't got to do that. So you have a voice that comes and says, fast. And then you have another contrary voice that you ain't got to fast. Wait till the weekend. That first voice is oftentimes God. It's going to be the loudest. It's going to be the one that you heard or what have you. I remember I had this mentor some years ago. And I remember saying to him one day, I got on the phone with him, and I was like, I didn't want to fast. I said, I heard this voice told me to fast. And I said, but you know what? Then I heard another voice, yeah, you ain't gotta fast or something like that. And he was like, yeah, that first voice is God. That second voice is your flesh. That first voice, because see, Satan cannot hear your thoughts. He can't hear what God is speaking into you. So if you get a contrary voice, a lot of times that's coming from your heart. A lot of times it was coming out of my flesh. And he said, I'm gonna let you know demons ain't gonna tell you to fast. And I was like, don't tell me that. Because I wanted you to hear, I wanted him to tell me that there wasn't God and you don't have to fast or what have you. But number two, God's voice is often the loudest voice, oftentimes the most persistent. Excuse me. God's voice is often the loudest voice playing in your mind. It's often the loudest voice. Satan's voice is a nag. It is really persistent. He'll keep saying, these are the darks. He'll just keep on in your dating. God's voice is heavy, it's a weight, but Satan's voice is like a nag. It just keeps saying the same thing again and again and again and again and again and again. Are you really gonna Are you really gonna go on that weight loss journey? You're gonna fail. You're gonna fail. You're gonna fail. You know, that's usually the voice of Satan. Satan's voice is going to be a nag, and it's going to also go contrary to the word of God. I don't want to jump ahead of myself, but Satan's voice is oftentimes the most persistent. God's voice will be heavy, but Satan's voice will be persistent. God's voice will be like a burden, but Satan's voice will be really, really persistent. Like you'll have a persistent fear, a persistent concern, or what have you. Number three, Satan often says what you want to hear. God says what you need to hear. I'll say that again. Satan often says what you want to hear. God says what you need to hear. I know plenty of times that you have those that you have that voice that says, you know what? Satan's voice, let me say this. Satan's voice will typically tell you is always in agreement with your flesh. And this is the reason why we tend to befriend Satan's voice, is because there's a level of comfort that comes with not having to crucify the flesh. There's a level of comfort that comes with not having to crucify the flesh. I can tell you, anytime God has dealt with me about eating patterns and stuff like that, there's that oh, you can wait till next week. That's my carnality, that's my flesh. That's not necessarily Satan. It can be Satan at times, but for the most part, that's carnality, that's my flesh. You can fast next week. You can start your weight loss regime next week. You can start this. You can start eating right next week. And next week, I'm typically gonna come up with another excuse. Why am I do it this week? I got 2 meetings this week, and we're gonna likely eat. So yeah, it don't make sense for me to do it. And then I'll say, okay, I'll do it Wednesday because I got a meeting on Monday and I got a meeting on Tuesday. So I'll start on Wednesday. And then Wednesday, I'll be like, I've been at the house all day long. I've been at this office. I've been doing this. So we'll start Thursday. You see that's flesh. That's flesh. But Satan often says what you want to hear. He always says what you want to hear, but God says what you need to hear. A lot of times we will not befriend the voice of God because God will tell us to do something that will give us an extra layer or level of responsibility. Like that office space. Let me be honest with y'all, and I'm gonna be really transparent with you. It's exciting. Okay, it's exciting to have the office space. It's exciting for God to do that. But it's not like, I'm trying to see how do I explain this. I'm not jumping off of furniture. I'm grateful, but what I see is responsibility. Does that make sense? What I see is responsibility. And because I see responsibility, I'm not, I'm grateful. I'm truly grateful. But at the same time, I've had my moments where I'm like, what did I just do? And that's how it works. Anything that you do, anything big that you do, if you meet somebody, you start dating, typically there's going to be that moment where the relationship transitions, where you get a little bit scared, right? Especially if you had a bunch of failed relationships in the past, you get a little bit scared. And if that person, proposes and you say yes, and the next thing you know, you start walking around like, what did I do? As the wedding day started approaching, because we are afraid of responsibility. Let's just keep it real. We as human beings are afraid of responsibility. We don't want to burden ourselves. And for me, I've been overburdened for a while. And every time I'm sitting here and I'm looking, like every time I feel like I'm just now starting to find a little bit of leeway. Like I feel like, okay, I got me a routine going. I'm good. God will give me an extra layer or level of responsibility. And I'm like, okay, we're back in the realm of impossibilities. And I want you to hear me when I say this: God specializes in the realm of impossibilities. For those of you who like to run from responsibility, God specializes in the realm of impossibilities. Now, I'm not telling you to burn yourself out. I'm not telling you to kill yourself. You got to be prayerful. You better use wisdom. But I am saying that God specializes in the realm of impossibilities, because ever since I've gotten this office space, a little bit before that, but ever since, my faith has been supercharged. My faith has been supercharged. I really literally feel like I want to go out here like I feel like I wanted to do every business venture I possibly can. But that's where self-control comes in. I don't know who needed to hear that. That's where self-control comes in, because even though my faith is supercharged, you don't want to run out there with faith and no wisdom. Okay. Satan often says what you want to hear. God says what you need to hear. Okay. I'm going to move on from there. Number 4, God's voice is always backed by his word. God will never give you instructions that go against his word. You cannot come to me and tell me that God told you that that's your husband when that man is married to somebody else. God did not tell you that. God did not. If he married to somebody else, well, Sister Tiffany, um, his wife is just not a nice person. It doesn't matter. God hates a divorce. God is a God who is about repentance. Well, Sister Tiffany, we're not really dating, but I'm his friend. God didn't tell you to be friends with this guy. When this man has a romantic interest in you, and you obviously have a romantic interest in him, no, you are a side piece without a title. You are an emotional side piece. Let's not play games. You know why I say that? You know how many conversations I've had with women like that over the years? That is one of the deceptions and the reason I'm talking it here, so that y'all single ladies, y'all can hear, because it's not uncommon for women to fall into that trap. I was just helping him. He was telling me all this crazy stuff about his wife. Why would he, as a married man, be talking to you about his wife? You're not his pastor. You're not his counselor. Why is he talking to you? He should be talking to you about his wife. What you have to do is say, "Oh, I'm so sorry. I hate to hear that. I hate to hear that. Let me refer you to somebody else." Now, let me say this. Sometimes you may have a guy that really genuinely needs counsel, but as a woman, you can give counsel like that 1 or 2 times, but then it's better to refer them to somebody else. I immediately think when I worked in the hip hop industry, I was double minded, unstable in all my ways. But I was working in the hip hop industry, and I was working as a manager for some hip hop artists. People don't believe that, but I was. One thing I can say, one gift I've always had is that guys are really comfortable with me. Been like that since I was a kid, and that probably has everything to do with the fact that my male cousins were like my best friends. Guys were always really comfortable with me. And I remember this. I had this conversation with multiple rappers, so I don't want to say, but I remember, I've had times where I've had like if I'm managing a rapper, what have you, they will be open, they will be wholeheartedly married, and they be like, "Hey, yo, Tip, I met this shorty," and I said, "You idiot," and that's how I would talk to him because I'm like, "You got a wife at home?" Yeah, but I got this shorty. She a red bone. You should see her. She this that. First and foremost, no, I shouldn't see her. But you know why they were telling me that? Do you think that they wanted me to say, "Boy, Dabs"? You know why they were telling me that? Because deep down within, they wanted correction. Deep down within, they already knew I was going to say something. And I remember having a conversation with a guy one time, and I said this. I said, "Let me ask you," because he was really popular in his state. I said, "Let me ask you a question. That shorty that you're talking about, would she have ever gotten with you if you weren't who you are? If you weren't all over the billboards and stuff like that, would she be interested in you?" He said, "No, nah, probably not." I told him, I said, "You know what's interesting to me is that guys, you typically want a real one. These type of girls, they ignore you, right? They've ignored you. They put their nose up. They made fun of you. They did all this stuff. And you vowed when you were in your low place, in your place of humility, you vowed you would never mess with a woman like that. You come and you get somebody that's down with you, that will be broke with you, somebody that's with you, that don't care about your career, has been with you 20 years, 30 years, 40 years strong." And I said, and finally you get some media attention, and you know where you're ready to toss away your ride or die for somebody that don't even like you. I remember telling him this, and he was like, "Dang, shorty, you got to be so brutal." I said, "How would you like me to be? How do you want me to be? You want me to tell you what you want to hear?" I'm like, "This girl don't like you." I said, "As a matter of fact, you mess around and you get her pregnant." Because I remember there was one time it was a guy had a pregnancy scare with a girl. I said, "You mess around and get her pregnant. Let me tell you what's gonna happen. She don't like you. So she ain't gonna like your kid. She gonna be looking at your kid look like your daddy. You ain't nothing but a paycheck. Your child ain't nothing but that. I said, so if you want to raise up your seed to be traumatized by somebody who's not interested in you, if you want to sit here and put that woman on your arms and get rid of your ride or die, go for it. I said, if you want to be sitting here all over the world with this woman because she looked good on your arms, and then she turned around and publicly humiliate you and discard you, and now she out here dating all these celebrities and stuff. If that's what you want for your life, sign up for it. But I ain't gonna be a part of it. I never, in having those type of conversations with guys, I never had a guy say, "You be." No, they always said, "Man, that's why I love you. I really appreciate you for that. I really appreciate you," because what I was doing was I was helping him to see, like, hey, and I would often tell him talk to him about God, even though but I would talk to him about God. And I'm like, bro, you over here and you're doing this. I don't know what you think, but this is what's going to happen. But I'm saying that to say that God will tell you what you need to hear. Was a God in me that was telling him what he needed to hear. I wasn't telling him what she looked like. Is she pretty? Oh, what? No. I was telling him, okay, you about to be the dumbest you're about to be the dumbest bag of bricks ever seen. You about to go get with somebody who don't even care about you, who don't even like you. You got your wife that's been down for you. She's been down for you. She has been on your side. I used to talk to some of these guys every day on the phone. I used to talk to them every day, but we didn't talk about that kind of stuff. But they felt safe enough to talk about that. And I'm like, I'll stab you. I'll stab you repeatedly because you want to be stupid. But Satan will often say what you want to hear. God says what you need to hear. God says what you need to hear. Number 4, God's voice is always backed by his word. That's where we were. His voice is always backed by his word. God will never tell you to do something that's contrary to his word. I don't care how you twist it up. I don't care how you Leviathan it. It doesn't matter. At the end of the day, God's voice. If you hear something that says Troy is your husband and Troy married, that ain't God. That ain't God. Y'all know I told that story. And my dad told me he a church he had started going to back in Mississippi. Said there was this woman there, and he had talked to the woman or what have you. I don't know. Probably followed her. I don't know. He started talking to her at the church, and she told him, she already God showed her who her husband is. And my dad said, "Who?" And I'm just gonna make up a name like Deacon Savoy. My dad said, "Deacon Savoy is married." She said, "Yeah, God showed me over 10 years ago that he's gonna be my husband." Now, Deacon Savoy had been married more than 10 years. And my dad said, he told her, that's not God. Of course, she had it in her mind that my dad was the devil. He don't know what he's talking about. God showed her. So I remember saying, I said, so she's sitting there, coming to church, literally waiting on this man's wife to kick the bucket. Because she know God takes a divorce. So she likely got in her mind that something gonna happen. This woman gonna kick the bucket or she gonna run off with something. She's literally sitting there going, that's witch. That's somebody moving in witchcraft. That's God's voice will never go contrary to his word. The reason you hear me saying that is because it's common. Trust me, you can bet your by golly wow. You can bet your pinky finger and don't do that. But I'm saying there's gonna be somebody on here that's gonna tune in, that's talking to somebody's husband, or may not be talking to somebody's husband, but just sitting in the background saying, the Lord showed me that he was gonna be mine. And the Lord told me to pray against the relationship that he's in right now. That ain't God. The Lord told me to pray against the relationship that he's in right now. No, because God does not move against your will. This is why it is illegal for a human to move against your will. God gives you the freedom of will. God gives you the word, and then he gives you the freedom of will. You have the freedom to choose him or to not choose him. You have the freedom to obey him or to not obey him. It is illegal for anybody, because even God does not control your will. It is illegal for anybody to control your will. That is witchcraft. It is an illegal act. Nobody should dominate you. Nobody should. It is illegal. It is illegal. But his voice is always backed by his word. Number 5, God's voice brings peace, correction, and clarity. God's voice brings peace, correction, and clarity. Satan's voice brings torment, false confirmation, and confusion. You can also put in there accusation, because Satan's voice will always bring accusation. Um, I always talk about this because I saw this a lot growing up. Um, Accusation, where people are always trying to figure out what's going on in your head. See, I already know what it is. You don't like me. Or you trying to make me mad. You trying to do this and you trying to do that. By the time I became a teenager, one of my favorite things to say to people became, how do you know what somebody's thinking? Because I heard that so much in my life. I heard that so much. See, the reason he did that, because I know what he was thinking. I know he thought this and I know he thought, and I'm like, how do you know that? So I started telling that to my friends, which is why I remember my friends were older than me. When I was like 21 years old, my friends were like 27 and what have you. When I was 19, my friends were like 26, 25, 27, because they were helping me to get in the club. False ID. By the time I got 21, where I was legal to go in the club, I was already starting to go to church. So I pulled out of the club. But what was I talking about? God's voice brings peace, correction, and clarity. Satan's voice brings torment, false. Oh, accusation. Accusation. One of the things that I remember, my friends, they started calling me mama, even though I was the youngest one in the crew. Because when people, some things, because I grew up with a lot of trauma, I have language for trauma. That's toxic. That's not good. That's not good. And before somebody comes and says, "Oh, it's your trauma," no, no, no. When you grow up in an unhealthy environment, you learn that's not good. That's not a good behavior. That's not a good tactic, or what have you. So I would tell them, because sometimes I'll be having conversations with my friends and what have you, and they say, "She thinks she all that," and I say, "Who?" Let's say, Walina. Good God, why I come up with that name? I'm looking at the wall. Walina. How do you know she thinks she all that? Look how she act. But that don't mean that she thinks she all that. You can't tell. She may be arrogant, she may be conceited, but at least talk to her first to see what, because that's the conversation I had in my house growing up, or what have you. Like, that's genuinely not what I was thinking. Because most of the times when you think you know what a person is thinking, when you think you know what a person's motives are, you are absolutely wrong. You can't even tell me differently. 99% of the time when you try to think what somebody is, when you try to think what somebody else's head, you're gonna be wrong. You're gonna make a whole lot of sense out of nothing. You make a whole lot of sense out of nothing. God's voice brings peace, correction, and clarity. Satan's voice brings torment, accusation, false confirmation, and confusion. Anytime there's confusion, I can tell you, whenever I have clients, sometimes I'll get a client, I already know this going to be this right here. This client needs a little bit of deliverance, or what have you. I can tell because they start releasing confusion. And I'm like, hey, wait, stop. Wait, hold up. There's a lot of confusion. And with the confusion, there's a lot of twisting of the words. It's a lot going on at any given time. You got to remember, I work with a lot of people. So there's a lot of confusion or what have you. So you have to stop them. You have to say, hey, stop. You got to stop. Stop, 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 stop. That's not what the website said. This is the price. Wait, no, let's focus on this real quick, because I want to make sure that you understand this. I want to make sure, because whenever you're dealing with people's money and stuff like that, a lot of times what they'll do is they'll try to act confused once they get the order. Oh, well, I thought, or what have you. No, 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 no. Stop right here, really quick. Let's make this really clear. Let me make this clear for you. You don't get a patch. Oh, you don't get a patch? No, ma'am. We are graphic designers. If you want to have it embroidered, you're going to have to send it to an embroidery company. Because if I don't make that clear, usually, and I've had this happen on a couple of occasions or what have you, but this is a little business talk. I've had it happen on a couple of occasions where the person called back and they be like, hey, I still didn't get my patch in the mail. It is on the website. You're not getting a patch. Oh, I thought I was getting a patch. No, you're not getting a patch. Well, can I get my money back? No, because we sent you the design. Like you don't get a free design. I can't regulate and say don't use a design because even though I can say that, you're going to likely still use it. Well, I thought it was a patch. You're not going to find any company that's going to give you a custom design and a patch for the no, no, you can't do that. Where was I? God's voice brings peace, correction, and clarity. Satan's voice brings torment, accusation, false confirmation, and confusion. Typically, when you come across a person, I'm gonna give you a little bit of word to the wise. To my single sisters out there, a little word to the wise. Even to my single brothers. If you start talking to somebody and then immediately you start getting confused, that is usually a sign that that person is dealing with a Jezebel spirit. I'm just gonna keep it real with you. Jezebel typically releases confusion. That is one of the things I've seen consistent with Jezebel is a lot of times they come in and they release a lot of confusion. And typically when you start dealing with confusion, you know what you start experiencing? Frustration. Frustration. Because you start saying, wait, hold up. Hold up. Okay, could you I, there's an echo in the background. Could you take me off speakerphone? Could you stop doing this? What have you? There's a lot of games being played, there's a lot of twisting. In a situation like that, little word to the wise, situation like that, what you want to do? Hey, could you come off speakerphone? There's a lot of noise in your background. You want to call me back when there's no noise in the background? There's usually a lot of confusion. When there's a lot of demonic activity, there's usually a lot of confusion that's released first. So usually when I see confusion preceding a person, that is usually a red flag to me. So that lets me know, be on your guard, be on the watch, or what have you. But like confusion and gaslighting, usually when it precedes a person, that like if you just meet a person for the first time and they come up to you and they like flabbergasted earrings on the foyer. What? That person's bound. That person is bound. That person, that person likes to play games. You have to sit back and say, okay, and turn your head. I just be like, flabbergasted earrings on the foyer. Really interesting. Because what I'm doing is I'm not engaging in that game. I'm not engaging in that game. And they say, are you from here? Not really. uh, yeah, because I was on Marble and the pickles flew. Oh, that's cool. Well, it was nice seeing you. That's a bound person. That's a bound person because they specialize in confusion. Because you know what confusion does? Who wants revelation? What confusion does is it makes you give them your full attention. Because a lot of times you come in contact with a person, you're just like, hey, how you doing? I'm good. How you doing? I'm good. And you may be looking around, your body language and all of that signifies, hey, I'm kind of, I'm engaging. But when somebody's utilizing confusion, it creates a moment, it creates a memory, and it can set the stage for a soul tie. Because right then and there, what you're going to do is you're going to focus all of your attention on them. You're going to be like, what? Or that's why some people, what they do when they come into a space, they immediately start offending people. And usually they'll target that one person and they'll offend that person. They'll offend their way into a relationship with that person. They'll offend their way into a relationship with that person. That is creating an illegal soul tie. All right, what was I? Number 6, God would often confirm what he is saying to you. Out of the mouths of 2 or 3 witnesses, a thing is established. God will oftentimes confirm what he is saying to you. If God says something to you, he will confirm it. Now, let me be clear. Just because you seem to have gotten confirmation does not necessarily mean that it's from God. I'm a living witness to that. Year 2015, if I hadn't been prayerful, I would have been deceived. 2015, I seemed to get confirmation behind confirmation about me being married that year. About me being married that year, and I would have fallen into the trap of the enemy had I not been prayerful, had I not been honest with God, had I not been intentional, because I wasn't in any open sin that I know of. I prayed and I said, God, I need your protection. I need your protection. But God's voice will often confirm God will often confirm what he is saying to you. He will often confirm what he is saying to you. I'm trying to think of an example of a time when he confirmed. Hmm. He will often confirm, and I'm getting a blank and it'll come to me because I'm trying to think for it. So now there's like a wall up right there. But God will often confirm what he's saying. He will sit back and say to somebody else, somebody may say something to you. Um, you may have something that, that weight on your heart, the weight of God's word or what have you, and you're kind of keeping it to yourself. And then somebody comes along and they say something to you, and you like, preach. Confirmation. Confirmation. That is absolute confirmation. But God will often confirm what he is saying to you. He will often confirm what he is saying to you. Again, out of the mouths of two or three witnesses, a thing is established. He will often, this is why he said there's safety in a multitude of counselors. There's safety in a multitude of counsel. He will often confirm. You hear oftentimes used, and this is why he said he prophesies, or God prophesies in part. So sometimes what God does to keep us from becoming arrogant, to keep us from becoming self-reliant, is he will give you a piece of a puzzle, me a piece of a puzzle, that person a piece of a puzzle. Like, we all have pieces of the puzzle. And if you get locked into your idea, what you'll do is you'll do with your little piece. But all of these form something bigger. Am I making sense? So there's a confirmation through allegiance. I know immediately, and now I'm starting to think about the seven mountain mandate. I don't remember these men's names, but you can look them up. But one guy had a dream, another guy had a similar dream. That was confirmation. That was confirmation. So typically, God will confirm what he is saying to you. He will confirm what he is saying to you. Number 7, we're almost done. We're almost done. Number 7, God's voice sets you free. Satan's voice brings you into bondage. God's voice sets you free. Satan's voice brings you into bondage. God, if you go out here and you see a car, and this is going to be controversial, but if you go out here and you see a car, and you're sitting here and you're trying to pay your rent, you're trying to pay your mortgage, all this other stuff. Well, not your rent and your mortgage, but your mortgage. You're trying to pay your mortgage and your bills and all this other stuff. You come out and you see a car, and you like that car. And the car, you talk to the dealers, what have you, they say to get that car, it's going to be $400 a month, plus it's going to be about another $326 a month for insurance. So that's $726 a month just for that car. That's typically not God. God, God brings you into liberty. He said, "Oh no, man, nothing but to love him." He also says, "Be anxious for nothing." That is usually just anxiousness. Is you borrowing from your future you to pacify your present you. Is you borrowing from your future you to pacify your present you. God, when he blesses you, he adds no sorrow to it. Debt is a form of sorrow. Debt is a form of sorrow. But God's voice sets you free. So Satan's voice will often bring you into bondage. You go get that car note, and now you're in the bondage because you didn't sign this contract, you done all of this stuff. Now you got all of these bills, and now you're stressed out. You're having to work yourself to death. You don't know what to do. And for what? Because you're trying to impress everybody. Because you're wanting people. And I'll tell you what I told my mom. I said, the crazy thing is most of the time we try to impress folks that don't even like us. I used to tell her that all the time because I noticed how the people were with her. Like, they don't come around to see how you're doing. They don't check on you. Like, they're not interested in you outside of what you offer. They don't like you because people who like you want to be around you just because. People who like you want to be around you. They check on you. They want to know, how's your day or what have you. People who don't like you, typically it's just whenever. It's whenever. And I would tell her all the time, I said, "Mom, why are you trying to make them like you? How many years does it take? You've been giving to these people for years. You've been helping these people for years. How long does it take before you realize they don't like you? How long does it take before you realize that these people don't, Mama, oh, family's family, nothing. Family, nothing, right? Oh no, man, nothing but to love them. Family, nothing." I'm like, "Mom, at what point do you get to the point where you realize that this relationship is one-sided?" But God's voice sets you free. Satan's voice will always bring you into captivity. It would always bring you into bondage. Last one, number 8. God will warn you, and and the burden won't lift. But the spirit of fear will nag you until you submit to it. God will warn you, and the burden won't. Like if God is trying to warn you, this is what happened to Brother Lindell. He was getting that warning, and that burden doesn't lift. But the enemy will nag you. 9 times out of 10, he had this nagging voice in his mind. And one thing I want to make sure that I deal with really quick is people pleasing. That nagging voice in his mind. And they're gonna talk about me. They're gonna say I'm a punk. They're gonna be mad at me. They're gonna say this, they're gonna say that. You gotta get free from that. You gotta get free from that. Because at the end of the day, people who love you gonna love you. People who not gonna like you, not gonna like you. Either way, it doesn't matter if you do or you don't do. It don't matter. Either way, you can sit back. Like with him, the best thing he could have done was listen to that voice from within. Listen to his sister when she was sitting there giving him, saying, "Hey, I had a dream. I had this ominous dream." Listen to that voice from within and look at the travel advisory, and said, "You know what, y'all? I'm not gonna go." Oh man, there you go. See, it would have been better for him to do that, and he would have been sitting up today looking at the news saying, "I'm glad I didn't go." Then it sit up there and say, "Well, you know what? I don't want them to think like I'm weak. I don't want them to be mad at me." Stop that. Stop that. The voice of God, and I really need you to hear me. The voice of God moves through a vein called love because he is love. And with love comes grace. With love comes understanding. There are things that come with love. If it comes through any other vein, it ain't love. Stop that. Stop sitting there thinking, well, you know what? Let me see this. Okay. Stop sitting there thinking, where was I? God will warn you and the burden won't lift, but the spirit of fear will nag you until you submit to it. This man sat back and this is Zendel. I don't know if I said Lindell a few times. I probably did. Probably said to the lady, "Hey, I don't think this is a good idea. Let's go another route. It's gonna be another 6 hours when we go that route." I hear you, but I'm saying, see, you gonna be in a pump. You gotta be. I done did this before. The last one, God will warn you, and the burden won't lift, but the spirit of fear will nag you until you submit to it. The spirit of fear is just hit you again, hit you again, hit you again, hit you again. God's voice is instructive. He will always give you instructions. So he says, above all I get understanding. So what he gives you is first there's knowledge. That is, okay, this is what you're supposed to do. Then he will oftentimes give you understanding. Um, like I said, I was talking about Zendel, and I'm not saying that this actually happened, but this is just me talking. There's a possibility he's saying, "Hey, I don't feel this. This doesn't feel right to me." Boy, you go. See, there you go being scary. There you go being like this. There you go being like that. She made it back alive. He didn't. She made it back alive. Right? Satan's voice is intrusive. She made it back alive. He didn't. I'm saying you want to make sure you have a relationship with God. You want to get rid of passivity. You want to get rid of fear. You want to get rid of people pleasing. You want to get rid of people bondage because there's a spirit called people pleasing. There's a spirit called people bondage, and they work with passivity. I remember being a young lady, and I would tell my friends no on certain things. And I learned that doing that made them show me how they felt. It made them show me how they really genuinely felt about me. Oh, I didn't get an invite. Dang, I ain't get an invite to this. I ain't get an invite to that. in that, I came to understand I can't say nothing to my mom if I'm going to end up being like her. My mom was an amazing person, and I genuinely, I still say this, I say this from my heart. If she wasn't so passive, I don't believe she would be gone. If she wasn't so passive, I don't believe she would be gone. I believe my mom would still be here to this day if she wasn't so passive, because she died from lung cancer. She had a man in her house smoking, and she was too afraid to say something because she was afraid of upsetting him, afraid of offending him, afraid of him abandoning her, afraid of, catch this, going through deliverance from that man, because that would have been nothing but deliverance. That would have been nothing but deliverance. She was too afraid that James 4:7 would come into play, and some of y'all are the same way. James 4:7, submit yourself to God, resist the devil, and he will flee from you. You are so afraid of sitting back and saying, hey, I don't feel that. You're afraid of people walking away from you, talking about you, laughing at you, um, disregarding you, ignoring you, putting you on punishment. And while those things may be true, the thing about it is, I'm going to say this, and I got to go because I want to. Somebody can put you on punishment. They can mistreat you. They can downgrade you in their life. It doesn't matter. At the end of the day, if you still got your will intact, you're still walking in your authority that God gave you. You got to pray. And anybody that loves and respects you will often will respect your wishes. Will respect you enough to say, okay, can I get an understanding, to have a conversation? If it's, see, there you go. And I'm thinking, when I'm saying it, I'm immediately thinking about old friends of mine. Oh, there you go. You don't never want to go nowhere. Da, 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 da. But I learned a long time ago. Okay, I got an example coming to mind. And y'all forgive me, y'all know I'm an example queen. But I have an example coming to mind. I was, I had to be about 18. I had to be about 18 years old. Maybe, yeah, 17, 18. I was working at Walmart, and there was this lady that had started working there. She was too old to be my friend, but she kind of hung with my crew. So I was kind of hanging around her too, even though I was like 18 years old. We'll call her Betsy. Betsy was like 40 years old, and Betsy was a piece of work. Betsy was a piece of work. So I had this ex-boyfriend, and y'all, if you never heard the story about the dude with the bullet, this is the dude. This is the dude. I had just started talking back to him. This is before I found out that he was living with a girl, right? He was lying or what have you. So I had just started talking back to him. Probably had been talking back to him like a month or so. I don't know. I had started talking back to him. Used to date him back in the past or what have you. So we had history. So Betsy, she comes up to me and she says that they were having a class reunion at she was about to have her, I think, like 20-year class reunion down in Louisiana. And she asked me if I wanted to come. No, why I want to go to Louisiana with an old person? That's how my mind was. I want to go to Louisiana with an older person, go to a 20-year. No, I'd be surrounded by folks trying to control me. Because, older people, they be like, oh, is that your daughter? Go give me a napkin, baby. Go do that. I know. But she said, I'll make up a name for this ex of mine. We'll call him, I'm not going to call him that. I was going to say Woody. But we'll call him Troy. I don't know why I was thinking Woody, but we'll call him Troy. So she said, she said, you can bring Troy with you. What? Now, I'm going to show you that the voice of God, I wasn't saved. But you know something? I had been praying for as a kid. I belong to the Most High God. God already knew he was going to be using me. God knew what he was going to be doing with me and all that. She said, you can bring Troy. We're going to be gone for the weekend. And I'll be staying at some of my family's house. And, you and Troy can have your own room. To a young person, you know what that sounds like. I get to be grown. I ain't got no adult. I can't do that to my mom. I can't sign me up. So I was like, okay. So I go and I tell Troy. I said, Betsy said she's going down to Louisiana and for the weekend, and she's going to her class reunion, and she wanted me to come, and she said you can come. He was like, let's go. Well, okay. I was like, okay. Now let me show you. Now I'm going to show you. God moved on this trip. God gives warning, right? God gives warning. Bessie comes to me. Bessie was conniving. Let me say this: Bessie was married. That woman used to cheat on her husband like it was nothing. I ain't never seen nobody. Goodness gracious, that woman was a piece of work. But Bessie, she comes to us comes to me about a day or two before the trip. She said, "Now listen, we going to my family house. They Christians. They don't believe in people sleeping together without being married. Do you have a ring you can put on your finger?" True story. That was wrong. I'd be mad if somebody put it on me. But that was wrong. She said, "Do you have a ring?" So I'm going to tell them that y'all are married so that y'all can sleep together. I said, okay. I had plenty of rings. I had, at that time, what do you call those rings that look like wedding rings? What do y'all what is the name of those rings? They were popular at one time. Anybody know what I'm talking about? Somebody's still wearing one right now. I know y'all on here. Don't be ashamed. What's the name of that ring? Not a purity ring. Not a purity ring. It looks like a Cuban. That sounds no. I know you're talking about Cubans, and I'm talking about the shape of it or something like that. Not Cubans, not cluster. Yeah, cluster rings. That's it. Cluster ring. It's a cluster. That's it. Cluster ring. I had maybe one or two cluster rings. So I was like, okay, cool. I'll put on the cluster ring and what have you. And so we go down there, and me and him be excited because we get to pretend we married, right? And he's excited calling me wife. He's excited calling me wife or what have you. And I'm excited saying hubby. Anyhow, the night before, now mind you, I wasn't saved. I believed in God. I had been raised Christian, but I don't know if I had ever confessed Jesus as my Lord and Savior. And I definitely hadn't been baptized, and I was not living for the Lord at all, nowhere near it. The night before the trip, and this is why I tell you, God does give you warning. The night before the trip, I had a dream. I dreamt that we were on this 2-lane road, and I was driving, and it was daytime. And I don't think anybody else was in the car with me in the dream. But I was driving down this 2-lane road, and then I ended up having an accident. I ran off the road or something like that. So this is the night before the trip. I wake up the next morning. I'm a little bit freaked out because it was such a clear dream. It felt so real. I could even feel the movement of the car in the dream if I'm thinking right. So I go and I say to Betsy, I go over to Betsy, and I'm gonna tell you something. Betsy used to always try to gaslight me. That woman was a piece of work. That woman told me that I was too smart, that I was gonna lose my mind because she said people that smarter than you, they usually lose their mind. I rebuked that in the name of Jesus. I didn't rebuke it then, but I rebuke it now. But she would say stuff to me that was just stupid, and I end up fussing at her. So I go over to Betsy. I said, Betsy, we need to be careful. She said, what you talking about? I said, I had a dream I was driving. It was like this 2-lane road, and it was like a lot of curves. And I ended up having an accident. I went off the road. And she said, don't you come over here with them jinxes. Don't you jinx this trip. I remember her saying that. I was jinxing the trip. I said, I'm not. I'm just telling you a dream I had. She was like, you jinxing it. I'm like, I'm not. So we get in the car. God is beautiful. God is faithful. I have a lot of reasons to just really be grateful to him. I owe him everything that I am. Right? I'm in the car in the back seat with my fake husband. No, he was over to my left. No, he wasn't. He was to my right because I was behind her. What was I? Yeah, I was behind her. So she was the only one in the front seat because we sat in the back seat so we could be back there with each other. So we're in the back seat. We were literally on the road I was in the dream, man. I had never been on that road before in my life, and I'm not lying when I say that. We were literally on this 2-lane road. It looked just like that road, all the curves and stuff like that. But it was nighttime, and she was driving, and I was behind her. He was off to my right. I think. he was off to my right. I sit back and I said to her, because it started raining out and she was going real fast. I said, Bessie, slow down. You're going too fast. Just be careful. So Bessie went into one of her little tirades. Girl, please. I've been driving since you were a spark. You were nothing but a twinkle in your daddy's eye. How you the backseat driving? So then here he come jumping in. He like, yeah, she do that to me too. She always got. And so both of them, I felt like I was being double teamed. I felt like I was being double teamed, and I didn't like that feeling. So y'all, this is God. I didn't like that feeling. I felt like I was being double teamed and what have you. And I try to defend myself, and they just having a field day with my name on it, right? They just having a field day. They just laughing and talking about me. So mind you, I had been sitting in the middle, no seatbelt on, between the seats, so I can lean and talk to her, all the while sitting close to him. I ended up when they were doing that, I didn't say anything. I scooted over. I scooted to the far side. And he said, oh, there she goes. She mad. She's like, yeah, she mad now. I scooted over. Now I scooted over to the left because he was on the right. So they're still laughing at me. They're still talking or what have you. I'm trying not to cuss. I didn't say my little piece or what have you. And I'm not going to lie. I was in that backseat thinking, I'm going to dump him soon as we get back to Mississippi. He going to defend me. You got something to say? So I scooted over. I scooted from behind. And she said, she always do that. She get mad when somebody try to tell. And I just sat there and I leaned my head on the seat. I didn't say a word. I let them keep at it. And I fell asleep. Head leaning on her. I put my seatbelt on and I don't know if I had my seatbelt on, but I had my head on her seat, if she was driving. I woke up being thrown and we had an accident. I hear boosh. And then we go spiraling and we go into a ditch. It all happened so fast. Y'all okay? So I'm saying that to say I got the warning the night before. They made fun of me. Well, she made fun of me about that. They made fun of me about that too, because she bought that up in the car. She like, yeah, talking about she had a car. I've been driving since she was a spark, a twinkle in her dad's eye. Yeah, she always had that. And they just having a field day with my name on it. I was like, okay, all right. I'm cutting both of y'all off. And I moved behind her. But I'm saying that to say God warned me. But also that offense was of God. God, if I had not moved, I would have been thrown out that window. It was no light level accident. Her car was totaled. Had I not got upset and moved away from him, had I not got upset and I positioned myself like I was going to be in an accident, I put my head on the seat in front of me and fell asleep. Had I not done that, if I had stayed, because I had got between the seats so I can talk to her, had I stayed between those seats, I would have been tossed out of that window. And I can tell you right now, based on that accident, I 9 times out of 10 wouldn't have survived unless God said otherwise. I likely would have survived unless God said otherwise. Got up from that accident. I remember the only bruise that I had was, I don't know which arm. I think it was this arm. It was purple. All up here was purple. It was very sore and it was purple. God covered me. He definitely covered me. And I thank God for his grace, because when we had the accident, we were in Louisiana. We weren't too far away from our destination. Her family ended up coming to get us. They had to tow the car. The car was totaled. And we followed on through with our weekend. But I'm saying that to say, God warned me in a dream. I didn't heed the warning. God strategically allowed them to offend me in that car because God knew how I would respond. God knew that I wasn't going to argue. I wasn't going to say anything. I was just going to scoot away from him because I no longer wanted him to touch me. And I was going to contemplate in my head, I'm dumping him and I'm getting rid of her. I'm done. And that's what I did. I scooted away from them. And I was mad. I just got behind the seat and positioned myself, not knowing that I was positioning myself for an accident. Not knowing that God was preparing me for what I had saw in a dream. The only difference was in a dream, the accident took place in the daytime. This accident took place at night. It was the same road that was in the dream, and I'm not lying when I say that. In the dream, I was driving and I was the only one in the car. In reality, it was three of us in the car. And just to be on the funny side, Betsy, we get the news. The news went around our job. This is just a funny part, and we were done with this. It went around our job, right? We went on about our weekend. Like I said, I had the bruise on my arm. Still out here living in sin. It still didn't dawn on me. God saved my life plenty of times. That's why I'm just so grateful to Him. He saved my life plenty of times. But Betsy, this is just a funny story. It has nothing to do with the message. Betsy, when we went back to work that Monday, Betsy went to work and told them that they had to pry her out of the car with the jaws of life and that she was stuck to the steering wheel. The car was totaled, but none of that was true. It was totaled. I don't remember how they had to get the door open or anything like that. I think we got the door open. I think we got out just fine. It was totaled. It did look like from the front of the car that it should have smashed her, but by the grace of God, it didn't. And I remember people, somebody walking up to me and like, "You okay?" And I'm like, "Yeah, I got that bruise, what have you?" And they said, Betsy said they had to pry y'all out with the jaws of life. I said, "No, they didn't." Bessie hated me. Bessie didn't like me anyway. I'm gonna be honest with you. Bessie tolerated me, but Bessie really didn't like me. But I don't think Bessie liked nobody. She didn't even like her own husband. She just didn't like herself. But Betsy said they had to pry y'all out with the jaws of life, and they had to airlift her to the hospital. I said, "No, they didn't." 'Cause I don't know. Maybe she didn't come to work. I don't remember. I just remember somebody coming up to me and telling me that, and I'm like, "No." Then they went and got a few other folks, and they all came around me. They were asking me questions, and I'm like, "No, that didn't happen." And Betsy was mad at me. I'm like, "I don't know. You didn't tell me to lie. I didn't know I was supposed to lie." But I'm over here. I'm grateful that God got us out the accident. And she gonna make it look like they had to have a helicopter that came. They had to pry her out with the jaws of life. And I'm thinking she said she was unconscious and she was stuck to the stern wheel and they had to pry the stern wheel out of her chest and fly her to the hospital. The whole nine. I'm like, no, they didn't. We had an accident. We got out the car. The police came. Car was a mess. We glad we survived. Um, she called her family and her family came and picked us up. That's what happened. We continued on. We went to the family. We went to the class reunion. We continued on with our little lie, and that's it. That's how that story went. So that's it. But I'm saying this to say, guys, listen. God warned you. Okay, stop questioning the voice of God. Stop doubting yourself. Stop overthinking everything. Just pray. And I hope that you were taking some notes. Right, she was definitely a compulsive liar. She was definitely a compulsive liar. I can tell you stories about Betsy. I can tell you stories about Betsy. Betsy stole $20 out of my purse one time. No, she stole. Yeah, she stole $20 out of my purse one time. And y'all, I'm just clowning at this point now. Y'all can get off of here if you just want to listen. This is the benediction. This is me being funny. Betsy stole $20 out of my purse. Betsy came into the lounge one day, and we used to go to this restaurant on Wednesdays. No, Thursdays. We used to get paid, and there was this restaurant that was right next door to Walmart called Gus. Gus had the best dressing in the whole wide world. All right. Gus had the best chicken dressing in the whole wide world, but they only served it on Thursdays. So it would be packed. They would be packed out on Thursdays. Now, I'm going to tell you something. Mississippi, if you say the food is good, it's delicious. Y'all, you'll be taken aback. So, the plate of dressing was always $7, always $7 even. So I remember I had $27 to my name. $27. That's all I had. And we've been to Gus plenty of times before. I don't think I had ever been with Betsy alone. It had always been a group of us. So Betsy came and asked me, she said, "What you doing for lunch?" I said, "I don't know." She said, "You want to go to Gus?" I said, "Yeah, sure." She said, "You taking your lunch at 12?" I said, "Yeah." Now, like I said, this woman like 20 something years older than me. Like, you're supposed to be like an auntie figure to me. But Betsy came and we were getting ready to go to lunch. I said, "Hold up, Betsy, let me go to the bathroom right quick." Betsy said, "Okay, I can hold your purse." And I thought that was weird because I was heading into the bathroom with my purse. But this is another lesson on passivity. Because in that moment, I wanted to say, "No, I got it." But she just came up. She said, "Okay, let me get your purse." Already reaching and grabbing. "Let me get your purse." And I didn't want to be rude. I should have been rude, but I didn't want to be rude. So I handle my purse. I go into the bathroom, do what I got to do, and I come out. I remember when I come out, the lounge is empty. My purse is on the table, sitting there by itself. Betsy's nowhere in sight. There's nobody around my purse. It's just sitting there. So I'm like, why she put my purse? Like, why she insist on getting my purse and then abandon my purse? So I get my purse and I go out into the hall, like, "Betsy." Then she comes, she's like, "Oh, hey." I said, "Why'd you leave my purse?" She was like, "Oh, with nobody in there, what have you." I'm like, and then it dawned on me. This lady just stole your money. This woman just she left your purse alone so it can look like somebody else stole your money. This woman just stole your money. I'll never forget this. I go and I said, "Hold up." She was like, "What you checking for? Let's go. We gotta go." Because I said, "Wait, hold up. Let me check." She's like, "No, come on, let's go. Let's go." I'll never forget this. She's like, "Let's go, let's go." I said, "No, hold up. No, let me look." So I opened my wallet. Betsy took my 20. She left me the 7, so I have enough to pay for my own food. I had $27 to my name. Betsy took my $20 bill. I said, "Betsy, where my money?" "What you talking about?" "Betsy, where my money?" Needless to say, we didn't go to lunch. I'm like, "You didn't even have enough sense to take the whole 27. You left me 7 because the plate cost $7. She took a $20 bill out of my purse. Like I said, that's just one of those stories, one of those crazy events but there is a lesson in that because, like I said, when I was heading into that bathroom, when she came walking up, because sometimes controlling people what they do. No, I didn't get it back. It was fine. It was fine. I was mad. We had our words. I stopped. We had an argument. We got into it. Um, we stopped. I didn't fool with her from that point on. She didn't fool with me. Probably about a couple of months later, she got arrested from stealing from Walmart. A couple of months later, she had been stealing. Now, by this time, I wasn't fooling with her. A lot of my crew, we just been fooling with her. She was going in the bin, and we had this security guy that thought he was double O Ninja, double O Negro Ninja 2000. That he used to love to do all those little crazy stuff or what have you. He was just having too much fun on the job. Well, Betsy had been stealing from the department they were working in, and she was trying to frame the other girl that worked over there, which was crazy because they were supposed to be cool. Um, they suspected it was Betsy. I didn't know what was going on. None of us knew besides the other girl that was working in the department. Long story short, he used to. They said it was early in the morning. They would find boxes and stuff like that in the back. Where the boxes, the warehouse part. So what this man did, true story, what this man did was he climbed up on the bins, went to the top with the boxes, and laid down face down so that he can watch her. Because every morning they had to come back there and get boxes, take boxes to the back and all that. He literally went up because, like I said, he thought he was a ninja. He just he was just agile, and he used to love to tell us about his adventures. He was calm, but he loved to talk about his adventures. I was so happy when he got hired on to the police department. But he climbed up the bins, and you had to see how that thing was. He climbed up the bins and he laid down between some boxes. You're not gonna come up in the bins looking up like this. You're typically gonna come looking around. So according to him, Betsy came in there and she did her little look around. Betsy used to wear a girdle. Betsy had got some CDs and she was taking the CDs out the pack. Or she was taking and she was putting them in her girdle. Taking out so the alarm part don't go off or what have you. And she was stuffing them in her girdle. The general rule at Walmart was you couldn't arrest. You typically couldn't arrest until somebody got to that door. Like you had to establish that they were actually trying to steal. But in some cases, in some extreme cases, you could go ahead and arrest. Um, Bessie was. I remember there was a. I don't know why I remember. I don't know what movie it was, but I remember it was Eddie Murphy. It was something with Eddie Murphy. One of them was something with Eddie Murphy, and she was stuffing all that stuff in her girdle. And the guy, the security guy, will call him Franco. No, he was a black guy, but we'll just say Franco. Franco sat there and watched until she was done. And y'all want to know what this man did? I used to love working there because we used to have all these adventures. From way at the top up there, he didn't climb down. Mm-mm. He jumped like a superhero. So you imagine this woman is stuffing her, she's just finishing up stuffing her girdle. Got her shirt up in the back, looking around, and she's stuffing her girdle. And all of a sudden, this little Negro just, not Negro, he was tall. Boom. And he, he said, hey, Franco. He said, hey, Franco. I'm sorry. I haven't been feeling well, y'all. This is definitely a good laugh for me because I'm going to go there. I'm drained. I got to go lay down to bed, but this is definitely energized me. But it's funny because I haven't thought about this story in years because she was so busy looking down and stuffing her girdle and looking around. And like I said, this man didn't climb down. He jumped. He jumped down like he was Batman. And she jumped. She said, "Oh, hey, Franco, how you doing? What you doing here? What you up there? Oh, you can jump. You you're agile." And he said, "Come with me, Bessie." She said, "What's going on?" He said, "You got to come with me, Bessie." She said, "Franco, no." And so she started trying to bargain with him. And if I'm thinking correctly, she tried to offer him her body. We passed the teaching stage. We passed the teaching stage. What's the address of my church? 4665 Macland, Macland Road in Powder Springs. We passed the teaching stage. Y'all, I'm over here being funny at this point. But that's awesome, brother Andre. But that's just a funny story. That's just a funny story. That's something that happened or what have you. But it came back to bite her. Like I said, she stole that $20 from me. I was really mad about that $20, but it went back. Oh, he did. He did. He did. And he was one of those guys that even though he loved all that adventure stuff, he was really calm. So that's what made it so funny. His storytelling, the whole nine was just hilarious. And I remember him talking about how he jumped down. And he said, and I knew he did it because I literally used to see him chasing people through the store. I remember one time they almost mowed me down like a thief was running and he was high speed. I'm talking about jumping over stuff or what have you. I felt like I was living in a movie. I was a young lady, so that stuff was exciting to me. But yeah, Bessie got arrested. Bessie was she was fired. Um, I can tell y'all one more story about Bessie, and then I'm gonna let y'all go. I'm just showing you Bessie was a piece of work. Bessie tried to cheat on her husband one time. She was always cheating on her husband. She tried to cheat on her husband. This is before she got fired. She decided to cheat on her husband. And y'all, I see the anointing has passed. I need to be off of here. I need to go lay down. Like I've been tired. But Bessie decided to cheat on her. She didn't come home one night. Now Bessie was short. Like me. She was short. Not that y'all know. Bessie was short. Her husband was tall, like 6'2", 6'3". Her husband was tall. He was younger than her too, but he was tall. She didn't come home. He comes up to Walmart one morning. We just get in. I see Bessie chasing him. Baby, I was in the hospital. Baby, I was in the hospital. As it turned out, she had been with another man that night. She went to some hotel. Her husband had actually went to the hotel, saw her car there. Didn't know what room she was in. Saw her car there. Didn't know how to reach her. I knew she was in a hotel with a guy. He came, confronted her at work to let her know I saw you. And what I saw, I remember thinking, she better stop chasing that man. That man big. That man gonna beat the brakes off of her. I just remember seeing her chasing him. Talking about, baby, I was in the hospital. She kept saying she was in the hospital. But that's just an example of a compulsive liar. Anyhow, the anointing been lifted. I need to get off of here. I think I needed that laugh. But I pray that you guys were blessed by this message. Like I said, use wisdom. If God gives you a warning, heed the warning. I love y'all. I will talk to you soon. Bye.